That alone, verses 96 and 97. Verse 96. The atom and the indivisible, both as being and non-being, shine from either side. Thereafter being fades away, and the experience of non-being, having no foundation, will also cease. Verse 97. The atom will disappear in the vastness of knowledge, leaving no trace of its parts. On that day the indivisible will attain perfection. Without experiencing, one does not know this unbroken consciousness. It is the silence-filled ocean of immortal bliss. Commentary. In the verses we have just covered, special attention was given to the Sat and Ananda aspects of reality. In the present two verses, attention is now turned to the Chit aspect. What is existentially present, what has a value of some kind, we have always known with our knowledge. As we were giving special attention to the existential and value aspects, we did not have an occasion to know how they are effected in consciousness. Now we turn to consciousness. The Guru is pointing out two main divisions in consciousness, Samanya and Visesha, or the general and the particular. All our experiences can be qualified under these two categories. If a teacher instructs about triangles, he is speaking of the general triangle. When, to illustrate his ideas, he draws 3 lines on the board, connected to form 3 interior angles, no matter how much he tries, he will not be able to draw the general triangle. He can only make one or another particular version of it. He may draw other particular triangles with different dimensions and different angles. Then, after demonstrating the special qualities of the particular triangles he has drawn, he can ask his students to generalize the universal characteristics of all triangles from them. This general triangle can never be seen, but the experience of the general is so interconnected with the particular, we hardly notice that we do not see it at all. When we look at a forest, we think of it in a general way, although we actually see only a number of trees. When we think of the forest, we don't put any emphasis on the tree, and when we look at a tree, we don't think of the forest as such, even though the idea of it is in the background. There is a kind of shifting of our attention back and forth between the particular and the general. At the commencement of an Upanishadic class, there is a peace invocation that the teacher and students chant together. It serves mainly to keep their minds tuned to the ideas of the present two verses. Om Purnamadaha. Om, that plenitude is perfect. Purnamidam. This plenitude is perfect. Purnat Purnam Udachyate. This plenitude, arising from that plenitude, is perfect. Purnasya Purnam Adaya. Purnam eva avasishyate. When this plenitude is annulled from that plenitude, the plenitude continues to be perfect. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. It's an exercise in mathematics, but the rishis believe it will bring peace. Om Purnamadaha. That is perfect. You can think that triangle is perfect, or triangularity is perfect. Purnamidam, the triangle which you have now drawn here, is also perfect. You cannot say it is an imperfect triangle. Purnat Purnam Udachyate. It is from the conceptual general triangle that the present manifestation of the triangle is effected. That's clear enough. Then Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Avasishyate. By deducting this particular triangle from the general, that is, by focusing on the particular and forgetting the general, it doesn't affect the truth of either part. If you take them together as all the particular triangles constituting the general triangle, it will also be perfect. By taking them together or subtracting one from the other, you do not affect the truth. If you know this, you become peaceful. From the time of Democritus, Heraclitus, and Leucippus in ancient Greece, and Kanada in India, it has been believed that the world is constituted of minute particles, atoms or anus. When two anus come together, they become something new. Three anus joined become something else. Quantitative variations, therefore, cause qualitative changes. As everything is made up of particles, all things here are a manifestation of very specific elements in particular combinations. This is one view. The other view is that the great Supreme God was filling the universe with his pure light, with his pure spirit. Then he desired to have manifestations, so he willed, "Let there be light," and the light came as a manifestation of his very word. Thus everything here is a manifestation of the word of God. It is all made up of the word. That's what St. John says. When we look at it this way, we are approaching the whole subject from the general perspective. Purnam Adaha. That which is unbroken is all this. Or we make microscopes, place slides on them, focus and squint. Look here, this is it, Purnamidam. So we have a world of microscopes on one hand, and a world of equations where we don't need any instruments other than our mind on the other. These are the two views from the intellectual standpoint. In our everyday life, the interplay of the general and the particular is very important. Suppose it is election time and you have to choose your president or your senator. People who have nothing to do with their citizenship suddenly feel they are Americans or Indians, French, Italian, Japanese for a couple of days. Then right afterwards they forget again. If it is an election for Oregon senator, they become Oregonians for a bit. Pascal once said, "Henry, I have to shoot you because you were born on the other side of the river. If you were born on this side, we would be fellow countrymen. But unfortunately, you are from the other side, so you are my enemy." If you think of my family, even though the members of your family are not present with you, your mind suddenly leaves the person sitting next to you and travels all the way to where your kith and kin are. They are all tied together in your mind as one general ensemble: my family, my countrymen, my religion, humanity. You can make a generalized picture in your mind by shifting your interest. But when it comes to the matter of brushing your teeth in the morning, no matter how dear your friend is, you become very particular about having your own brush. We are not speaking here of some abstract philosophy, remote from our normal concerns. This is something we deal with every day. When we think of the particular, the general naturally becomes dimmed down, and vice versa. You can sit and argue for days whether the world is constituted of atoms or whether it all comes as the manifestation of the Word of God. and it won't change much in your personal life. The general and the particular interweave all the time without having much effect on each other. There are certain natural operations of the mind which are caused by the alternating states of consciousness. When you wake up, it is imperative to do certain things. Your sense of duty tells you to do them. Then, when your eyelids become heavy and you fall asleep, you are introduced to another world with new demands and necessities. In the dream world, perhaps a mad elephant may be glaring at you with a menacing look, and you want to run away, but you find you cannot move. This was never a contingency in the wakeful world, but it has become a very critical situation in the dream. Then, when you wake up, you laugh at yourself. What was so real in one situation is no longer real in the next. This discrepancy does not occur only between our dream and the wakeful. Within the wakeful world itself, you may exchange words with someone and put a wall between you. They might cry out, "What am I, a sheet of paper for you to tear out and throw away? You still belong to me." "No, I don't." "Why not?" Then after some time you may feel bad about your attitude. "I shouldn't have been so cross. Sometimes I'm like that, so impatient. I got up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. I should discipline myself, learn to behave. I'll write a letter saying I was in a bad mood and I'm sorry." This clash of perspectives is part of our daily experience. Here Narayana Guru says of the general and the particular, when one becomes real, the other becomes unreal, in the sense that your emphasis is no longer on it, but both are shining. It's like two lights blinking alternately, where you get the illusion that the light is moving. First the light of generality is on, then the light of particularity. McCulloch, in Embodiments of Mind, describes how this involves an actual change in the pattern of the brain's molecular operation. Just as in the Guru's description, there are two separate nets of cells in the brain, and when one shines, the other is off, but they are mutually correlative. This needs to be understood dialectically. In the light of this understanding, existence and value, which we have examined separately in the previous verses, are now to be brought together. There is no separate existence as such, and no separate value as such. There is only consciousness. The fact that consciousness glows is existence. The fact that the glow has a certain brilliance is itself the value. When you say Sat Chit Ananda, do not think there are three things sitting in the Absolute. There is only one thing, not three. You can either look at the one thing as existence, or look at it as knowledge, or look at it as value. The purpose of the present two verses is to synchronize our idea of existence and our idea of value as one idea of consciousness. The main thing is how exactly that consciousness operates. We have now come to the last few verses, and Narayana Guru wants us to finally retire from this endless process of intellectualization. We cannot go on discussing forever. We have to retire from where all these operations are taking place and go into the very core, the very depth, to the place particularity emerges out of and re-emerges into, and the place where generality comes into focus and disappears out of focus again. We are to turn to that source. This, mine, my child, I am the mother, I am the father, I, humanity. After making a statement, if you allow silence to prevail and envelop you, the idea that comes with all its brightness becomes more spread out. The sharpness of its edges goes. It becomes vague. It fills the silence, or the silence is interpenetrating into your thought. The next thought dissipates into silence, and at last the silence overcomes you. This becomes a new pulsation of idea, no idea, idea, no idea, yes, no, yes, no. Then comes a yes that has no form, because it swallows up both the yes and the no. The universality of things and the particularity of things, your personal preference and the preference of all, the love you give and the love you receive, all these ultimately subside. The observer and the observed both blend into the observation, the knower and knowledge, the doer and the action, the enjoyer and the enjoyment, all merge into this one silence. The inner and outer, before and after, the one and the many, all these differences are now effaced. There is knowledge and there is the glory of knowledge. When you say knowledge, it is a simple abstraction, but the glory of knowledge is a wonder that fills your knowledge through and through. In the final verse of Narayana Guru's Daivadashakam, God is equated with the ocean, and his glory is equated with its depth. This means there is a verticality of knowledge, and everything general and everything particular can be traced back to it. Triangle ABC is true. Triangularity is true. Why? Because the truth of both belongs to a verity that axiologically exists with us. The self approves of the truth. It's not a certitude which comes from any outside authority. The conviction comes from within, from one's own self. The certitude of the self is called Atma Nischaya. Nischaya means certitude. To the self that is sure. When you say, my God, it touches the same place. My child, it touches the same. Oh, beautiful flower, this great humanity, they touch the same. Whether they are general or particular, they all converge to one single point. Certitude is there, joy is there, knowledge is there. The sense of existence is there, all joined together there. To come to this, you have to retire from all discursive reasoning, from applying any and all gimmicks and techniques, and from putting forth efforts, thinking that at the end of the effort you will get it. You retire from your role as an actor. You retire from your role of enjoyer and from your role as knower. You just allow yourself to be enveloped by whatever is. In fact, the is and the is not are both cancelled out there. You no longer even look for what is or what is not. They are not relevant. It's only a question of giving up. Then the Guru says, there is no point in repeating this ad nauseam. Either you know it or you don't. Either you are at one with this beingness or you are not. It is not consciousness of anything. It is not knowing anything. It's just knowledge, pure and simple. It is a deep, deep silence where there is no question of change or transformation. It is said, whenever something occurs, it perishes. It becomes mritam, mortal. Where nothing occurs, nothing perishes. So it is amritam, immortal. Amrita ghanam means Through and through, there is no separation. Next, the Guru equates God with this great ocean, just as in Daivadashakam. He says that into which you merge is an ocean of silence. As the Amritam sound is there, existence and value are both to be seen in what is described as the ocean of silence. It is Amritam, but it is also Maunam, the great silence. Shankaracharya has written some praises of the Guru Dakshinamurti. In them he says that a Guru sits under a tree. It's a wonder that he is very young and his disciples are all very old. He is not saying a word, but his silence is dispelling all the doubts of his disciples. His commentary on the Absolute is only his silence. And what is happening to the disciples? All their doubts are being shattered. This is the last lesson a Guru gives. Nataraja Guru writes in his biography of Narayana Guru and in his own autobiography that whenever the Guru and a disciple meet, the Guru always called the disciple's attention to some basic problem of philosophical or contemplative interest. They always had very interesting discussions. The last time he went to see the Guru, though, he was sitting unconcerned. Nataraja Guru thought that was strange, because he always took such an interest in his disciple and brought up a question for discussion. But this time the Guru was sitting there completely indifferently. He thought, probably he is in some state of meditation. He has not seen me. I'll wait. He waited, but there was only silence. He ventured to put a question, but the Guru did not break his silence. He just sat there silently. Then he knew this is the last answer to all the questions forever. It was into that silence he had to merge. It was from that he had to seek his answers. For those who had the opportunity to be in the presence of Ramana Maharishi, it was a very profound experience. Most of the time he sat in deep silence, but he was not meditating. He was sitting with his eyes open. He always looked just ahead. Several times I tried to determine exactly where he was looking, but I could never make out whether he was seeing outside or inside, something or nothing. At times I tried to catch his attention, but it made no impression. He was totally unaffected. It is a little like being drunk without normal orientation. There is no purpose, no questions or answers, no I and no other, nothing to do. You have, in a sense, done everything, so there is nothing more to do. This is again the Kritakritya. In the Nirvana Darshana of Narayana Guru's Darshanamala, he says that when a person comes to a maturity of understanding, he knows there is nothing for him to do. The body is there, hands, legs, eyes, and the faculty of speech are all there, well adjusted. As there is a little power left in the equipment, let it be used for the good of the world. There is no personal gratification. But if someone needs to achieve something in the world, he is capable of helping them. His action is performed only as a sacrifice. Then gently a whisper comes to him, "Get ready, enough of all this," and that motivation also leaves. When this happens, there comes an indifference, udasina, and he forgets about his bodily state entirely. Towards the end of Narayana Guru's life, people would offer him lunch and there would be no response. They would wait a while and then say, "It's lunchtime." Then he would touch his belly and say, "There is no feeling," and again go back into his state of absorption. He touched his belly as if to say that for the sake of the stomach he would take food, but there was no call for it from there. This state is described in the Guru's Nirvana Darshana as Vedito Veti. If someone tries to call one to attention, he responds. Then Nirvana proceeds a step further to Na Vedito Veti, the state in which even when someone calls his attention, there is no response. The person who is still doing some action for the good of the world, even while having nothing to obtain and nothing to achieve, is called a Brahmavit. One who goes beyond this to a total neutrality of action is called a Brahmavit Vara. Finally, one who has totally entered into the silence, who knows nothing of this world, is a Brahmavit Varishtha, a most superior knower of the Absolute. There is a state of spiritual attainment which in India is called Virakta. Viraktas have absolutely no interest in anything. Once I went to Amritsar with Nataraja Guru for a Vedanta conference. Many great gurus and teachers from all over India were there, and an ocean of people. They would gather at 5 a.m. and sit until 6 or 7 p.m., listening to all the grand talks of all the great teachers. The conference had been convened by Swami Nirmal Maharaj, whose guru was a Virakta. Whenever Nataraja Guru was not giving a talk, I used to slip out of his group and go see that guru. On one side was a vast sea of people, and on the other a small room that faced the forest. There was nothing going on. He would sit there, very old but with bright, shining eyes. I couldn't say if he was smiling or not smiling, seeing or not seeing. He knew nothing of what was happening around him. At least that was my impression. With all the noise and chaos, it was hard to believe that a person could be so totally withdrawn and not be catatonic or mentally ill. He was alert in another way. I could feel that alertness as soon as I came into his presence. It was as if I was sitting near a great power station and was caught in its energy field, as if I vibrated with a profound silence coming from that little hut. There was nothing negative about it. To me, it was more positive to sit in his presence for 5 minutes than to listen to all the talks of all the great teachers at the conference. The best of all meditations, I know, is not thinking or chanting or following some practice. It's allowing yourself to be lost, not directing your thoughts with any kind of motivated mind, not taking interest, not picking anything up, not feeding yourself on memories or paying heed to inner suggestions. It's not very difficult. It happens by itself, and then it affects others also. It's contagious. The silence envelops you and becomes very strong. You cannot say what kind of experience it is unless you are caught in it. This is something we are carrying with us all the time. I am not suggesting you get totally into this while you are still young, but short spells of it can be very refreshing and very reassuring. It will take you home, whatever that means. The last verse of Narayana Guru's universal prayer is, "In that immeasurable depth of your glory, all of us should merge gently, gently, and should remain there forever and forever in the unbroken peace of eternal happiness." And the free translation of verses 96 and 97 are as follows. 96. The finitude of the atom and the infinitude of the indivisible whole shine side by side, as if they existed, and also as if they do not exist. So it is not possible to determine with any certainty which of these two experiences is true. 97. On the day when the finite is fully absorbed in the glory of the infinite, that knowledge will attain the perfection of the plenum. One cannot even imagine the totality of the all-filling consciousness without experiencing its immeasurable magnitude. It is like an ocean of silence in which everything is submerged.